Hello and welcome to the Addicts podcast. I'm your host, Jamar. Today's episode 119, and we're interviewing Donald M. How are you doing today, Donald?
All right, and you?
I'm doing all right, So let's dive in here and get started. Tell me how it was for you growing up. What was your childhood like?
Well, when I was born, my mother and my dad were married, and it was three of us, all boys. At about five or six, that ended up splitting up and getting divorced. Basically, I vaguely remember when they were together, when all of us were together. But all of my memories come from after that, for the most part. Uh,
So you
then
don't
my
remember what you felt like when they got divorced and stuff?
honestly, I really didn't have much emotional attachment to my father. I didn't, just to put it bluntly, I didn't like him much, so it wasn't a big deal for me. I can remember way back. I do kind of have some memories when they used to argue a lot, and then he and a cousin of mine used to always be in our basement, and they'd be drinking and smoking and doing whatever. I can vaguely remember some of those things, but then after that, at about five or six, for the most part though, I lived with my grandmother anyway during those first few years, and then a lot of years after that, on off and on. So basically,
Where
I'm more of a grandmother's child.
where was your mom why was your grandma raising you?
Well, I was the firstborn and the first grandchild, so I was pretty much doted upon. So I was kind of wanted, and I was spoiled because of that. And so I guess it was also some kind of weird tradition where my grandmother's firstborn grandkids would come and stay with her for a while to start, and then go from there. But so after my mother and father split up, I pretty much spent a lot of time back and forth with my grandmother, who was my father's mother, and my mother, and she ended up having two more boys. At about I was about 10 or 11, 10 and 11 I was, and pretty much when I was with my mother, I had to learn how to do some grown up things like feed a baby and uh, just cook and clean and be responsible, because I was the oldest child. So I had to learn a lot of that. I was a latchkey kid, which is, I had my own keys and was able to come and go as I pleased. So that was back in the day when it was safer for that type of thing. So yeah, I had to after my last two brothers came, I had to pretty much learn how to do a lot of grown up things, run errands for my mother, because she was a single mother at that time, and a working single mother. So with five boys, mind you, so I was kind of forced to kind of step it up.
How was life at school?
Uh, for the most part, I hated school. I was a big an underachiever, actually. I just felt like all of that stuff that happened before that made me feel like I was too mature for school for the kids that were my age. So I didn't really like school, and I was an underachiever, but I was smart. I just didn't have the passion that much for school. I was more so focused on after school. Um, yeah, so I pretty much slided through school without trying very hard.
And that was all of your school career.
Uh,
That was all of your schools, like middle school, high school, all that stuff, kind of just half-assed your way
yeah,
through it.
pretty much, especially high school. I became very disinterested in at least making friends with those kids, because at that time I started hanging out with my uncles and aunts who were older. So yeah, I just did what I had to do to make it through school, and that was that with that.
So starting with you were young, how was your social life as far as friends and hanging out and stuff like that?
So I had a few friends. I was not that social butterfly type person. I was kind of bullied coming up. because I wasn't the toughest kid in the neighborhood or the hood or whatever. So I was kind of bullied, which had created some trust issues. So I didn't really have a lot of friends. I hung out a little bit. I played sports growing up a lot, every major sport, baseball, football, baseball and softball in the summertime, football in the wintertime every Sunday, and then some. So I grew up doing a lot of that. I had a normal, abnormal childhood at the same time. Yeah.
That's a good way of saying it. I've never heard that before. It's kind of how I feel.
Yeah.
You mentioned the word hood. So did you grow up in a rough neighborhood?
On the west, I was born on the south side of Chicago, and then I was raised on the west side of Chicago. So yeah, in the Lawndale neighborhood, which was very rough, back then. And then we moved to another part of the hood, which was the Humboldt Park, which is the west side of Chicago also. And after my brother got killed at 18, then finally my mother, moved the family to the west suburbs. And that's where we all have been residing since then, outside of the city life.
What kind of stuff do you remember living in the hood? Like what kind of stuff were you witnessing and things like that?
Well, it was all about the getting high, the hanging out.
You're talking about for you?
Just the hood overall.
Oh, the hood overall. Okay.
At least the environment I was in. So, like I said, I hung out at my grandmother's house, which gave me much more freedom, and which I also was able to see my aunts and uncles and their rows of friends coming in and out of my grandmother's house, and they'd be smoking weed. And at the time, I didn't know what else they were doing, but they'd be smoking and drinking and hanging out all day. And I found that at that time, a big part of me found that exciting. Although that's not how I got started getting high, but people hanging out in the streets and on the corners. But a lot of times back then, though, a lot of it, we played a lot of sports. There were sports. We were right across the street from a big park, blocks of a park, and like I said, there was a lot of sports going on also. So it was kind of a balance, with the hood-like life, and then we were able to do productive things like, enjoy being out in the parks and just hanging out safely, safer. Safer at that time.
So, how was it growing up with, what do you have, 4 brothers, you said?
Yeah, 4 younger brothers. So my brother next to me, we had it's a very bitter sibling rivalry, because me being the oldest, again, I was, spoiled and doted upon. My uncles and aunts loved me, and my grandmother loved me, and my mother, and I'm sure they weren't trying to slight him. And then when I got a little hold of that, I made it even worse by pushing it in his face and letting him know that I was the one, and you're just the brother. And we went through a very, very bitter sibling rivalry until the day I heard that he was shot in the head, and it was partly due to his his addiction. He was an addict also, and when he was shot in the head, that changed everything. And I realized I really didn't hate him like I thought I did, and then I found out he just wanted to do what I was doing and walk in my footsteps, and he just wanted me to be a brother. And I wasn't.
Say again?
And I wasn't interested at that time.
Sounds like it's something you regret.
Kind of, but I've grown out of it, or not grown out of it, but I accept that it has happened. I can't change that now. Of course, if I knew back then what I know now, I probably would have acted differently, because there were I had a couple of friends that just told me that, he just looked up to me. It just didn't feel like it. I didn't know or couldn't tell, and probably didn't care. I just didn't want him to get the attention that I was getting, because I felt like if they were loving him the same way, then they couldn't love me. So it's a weird dynamic, complicated.
That sounds like the right word, complicated.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So at what age were you first exposed to drugs where you were actually, trying it and things like that? Because I know you said from a young age, your uncles and people like that would be smoking in front of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what was the first age? What was the first age you remember seeing drugs or alcohol or something like that?
So it's weird. So the misconception is, my aunts and uncles who I was hanging out with got me started getting high, but that's not the truth. The truth is, so I was in junior high, 7th and 8th grade, and these guys, little young, probably gangbangers at the time. I don't know today because I wasn't, that up on it. But they used to always lose their joints in class and at school. I mean, it was like a regular thing. So I would always find one. And then at lunchtime, I would go home and, sneak inside our closet and smoke the joint. And then when it's time to go back to school, I'll go back to school high. And that's where it started, right there. And, I finally let my uncles and aunts know first. And they just basically told me, look, just stay in school, just smoke after school, do what you have to do after school, do what you want to do after school, just stay in school. But that's where I got started. Ironically and weirdly, just by finding weed.
So the first time you got high, you were by yourself?
Yes. Yep. And I was off and running after that with the weed.
What do you mean by off and running? What kind of stuff were you getting into?
Smoking weed every day. And then, so at that time, after I started smoking weed, I started learning about the other things that my older uncles and aunts were doing. One of them, and the people in the neighborhood, and the other one was smoking PCP. It was popular, for a while. Well, it's starting to be popular again, actually, but it was popular back then. So I started doing that for a while, off and on. That's not something you could do every day, although some try it and it doesn't turn out good. But sporadically, I moved to that, and then
at what age did you move to the PCP?
So about 14, 15, I started doing a little of that, along with drinking. So I was smoking weed at 13. Then eventually I started smoking a little PCP, and then I started drinking at about 14, 15, 16.
What does PCP feel like? What kind of high is it?
It's like almost an out-of-body high. You feel like you're walking next to you, basically. It gives hallucinations. It's just like a floating high or something like that. You're just outside of yourself, basically, And it's a speed, so speed, psychedelic mixture type.
Yeah. So, at what age? Well, let me ask you this: did you finish school and everything?
I'm sorry?
Did you finish school?
Yeah, I actually ended up having to do 5 years of high school because in my senior year, I could have went to summer school to graduate, but I was working 2 jobs. I always worked since whenever I was able to. I was working summer jobs every summer since I was 14, I think, because we used to have a summer job program. So I always worked. So that summer when I could have graduated at 18, like I said, I had a summer job and a regular job. And I chose the money over the graduating on time. So, and mind you, at the time, the money was for me to have more money to get high also, which I started doing more and more, and a gamut of drugs, different drugs. So yes, I did make it through high school.
What did you do once you graduated?
So Let me go back. So at about 16, I basically I moved out after my brother got killed. I came back home.
Was that at 16?
No, I'm sorry. When I finished school, I moved out. And then after he got killed, I moved back home for a while.
So you said your brother, it was because of his addiction he got killed.
Right. So, all right. So back to when I was 16, I learned about, my uncles again and aunts, they were doing something called Koster, which was a codeine mixture and mixed with a sleeping pill that gave you a heroin type of euphoria, a heroin type of feeling. So I was doing that for a few years. And then when that played out, my brother actually was the one that turned me on to heroin, which I knew nothing about at the time. He had already started heroin. And so I started doing that. And that turned out to be my ultimate drug of choice. And it was his. And he ended up not surviving his because he was out hustling to try to get money to get high when he was murdered. Does that kind of correlate and make sense?
Yeah. Do you know, not to get too much into it, but do you know what actually happened that he got killed? What kind of beef was it?
The details were kind of sketchy. He was apparently in the neighborhood of certain drug dealers that he was hustling in there around their territory or whatever. And they ended up allegedly just ended up killing him for doing things on their territory.
Crazy shit.
Part of the lifestyle and environment.
How did it make you feel?
Oh, I was messed up. This is the kid that I thought that I hated all his life, and for it to end like that before any kind of resolution, it messed me up at that time, and it definitely exacerbated my addiction issues.
So you found yourself using more after he passed away?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And all in all, I kind of, at that time especially, I felt responsible for him starting getting high because he wanted to follow up behind me and do what I was doing so that he could get the attention that I was getting. So he started smoking weed after I did and then started doing all the things that I was doing afterwards. So I felt somewhat responsible at that time. It's alleviated today in my life, but I felt somewhat responsible because he just was always trying to get what I had and do what I did and all of that to try to gain acceptance and my attention, basically.
Yeah. So once you graduated high school, you were still working two jobs. How was it? How long were you able to manage that? Did your drugs ever get in the way of you working?
So no, I had a summer job and a regular job. So the summer job ended, and then I went back to high school for the 5th year. And then after I graduated, after the 5th year, I moved out.
Where'd you move?
To the north side of Chicago, which back then was the thing that everybody did to get out of the hood. The north side was, moving on up to the east side, like the Jeffersons.
Yeah.
Back in the day, how that was. So I moved to the north side, and then again, not to keep backing up, but then when my brother got killed, I moved back home for a while to my mother's house. And then eventually she moved my younger brothers to the west suburbs, which no doubt was the best thing for them, for the whole family.
So how did your drugs progress? So you were using heroin pretty young. At what point did you kind of start going down?
Okay, so I met a friend who actually was a cocaine addict, crack. Well, it wasn't crack back then. It was freebasing cocaine. You cook the cocaine up and put it in the pipe. So I learned that. I was hanging out with him and started doing that with him. This was right after, well, during the time actually, after my brother was killed. And I started doing that for about a year and a half or so. But I never was happy with that. So I ended up reverting back to my heroin use. And eventually I could not stop doing it on a daily basis or trying to get it every day.
And real quick, how were you using it? What did you snort it, smoke it? What'd you do?
Heroin?
Yeah. What did you, how did you use it?
So I started snorting it.
Okay.
And then eventually I moved on to shooting.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. So, during all this time, I never, I've always wanted something different and more. So one of my other vices became traveling. So about 8 months after my brother was killed, I met who turned out to be my best friend for double-digit years, about 20 or so years. It turned out he was born the exact day and the exact year of my brother, that my brother was born. And we became best friends for years. And then we became traveling buddies. And basically we started traveling all around the country, a lot of it with him and a lot of it by myself also. So I also have I guess a traveling addiction, if you want to say it.
How are you able to afford that?
So I always worked for the most part. I have done some not so legal things to get money also to go along with it. Because at the same time, I was still doing my drugs, and when I couldn't get to the drugs, I was drinking a lot. Most of the time when I couldn't get to the drugs, I was probably I was living out of town probably, because so this best friend, he showed me, well, he put me up on the national parks. And back in the 90s, we went to, we applied at this job in Maine, Acadia National Park. And we went up there and worked for the summer. And at that time, I was really trying to run away, basically, for one thing. I got up there and I was still drinking and smoking weed a lot. I wasn't doing heroin or anything, but turned out to be actually the best time of my life, and it changed my life because it opened me up to different types of people, different race of people, obviously up in Maine. And that was a turning point in my life. But then I ended up coming back to Chicago after that. The 6-month contract was over, and I resumed my getting high and doing heroin.
It's amazing how sometimes we just go right back into the same bad habits no matter what.
Yeah, because you don't put forth any kind of change. So I was still the same person when I got back. I didn't heal at all. I just went up there, and like I said, I was still drinking and everything, and came back to Chicago, and everything was right back where I started, basically.
You said you didn't heal at all. What kind of stuff were you healing from?
I mean, healing from doing the drugs for so many years. I didn't get any kind of help with my addiction issues. And no, I didn't heal from, like the things that happened to me coming up and seeing my brother not seeing him, but having my brother being murdered and just things like that, childhood traumas and all of that, which is what it takes to, get in recovery. Got to deal with some of those traumatic experiences.
So what age did you say to yourself, I can no longer handle this, I'm out of control? Like what age did you seek help?
Well, I started going in and out of treatment, in and out of treatment, in and out of treatment. And it started to become a big cycle. I would go into treatment, get out, and, not continue any kind of work that, that they suggested to get my life in order. And I'll end up just resuming back, to getting high. I was continuing to try to run away from it. So I started going to other national parks to work. Like I went to Death Valley National Park in California, worked out there for 6 months. Again, drinking and smoking, and actually I got turned on to crystal meth out there for just about 2 or 3 times I did it. And then when that was over, I would come back home and start the same cycle over. Start, maybe get a job, and then start back getting high, and in and out of treatment. And I was basically in the same cycle for years, for a couple of decades actually. And I didn't get clean to about 47, I think. And I ended up finally, going to treatment, and it ended up taking. I think for me, it was just the running in place, not getting, finally accepting the fact that, I'm not getting anywhere, and it starts becoming a heavy burden, a heavy feeling of just running in place. So eventually, I guess it locked in, and I finally started to make it work.
And you said, what age was this again? You said 47?
Yeah.
So at what age was the first time how long was it going on? You said you were in and out, in and out, in and out. How long exactly was that going on? And what do you think was the reasons that you were going just in and out so quickly?
Well, to take a break from, being out in the streets, having my disease pretty much, tricked me into thinking, not my disease, I'm sorry, thinking that I was ready, basically, wanting to be ready, but my disease telling me that, you can go back out there. Basically, it's hard, it's difficult to explain, like not being able to get it the first few times because of the power of and the control of being an addict. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Isn't that the question? I mean,
yeah, it answers the question, because drugs are a powerful thing. So that's what really kept you in and out, was just.
Right. Sometimes, it wasn't that I didn't want it. I did want it, but I just wasn't able to put in the work to do it. The seed just wasn't sprouting, and I guess part of that also was feeling invincible, that I could continue to do so. And because I had some semblance of a regular life. Like I said, I've done, I was traveling, I was working off and on, albeit a lot of times I was independent for the most part, I had my own place or with roommates or whatever. So I had some semblance of a regular life, but inside I was still dark, and that wasn't getting fixed.
Yeah, I guess a lot of us have that darkness inside, kind of like an emptiness, I guess, is another way to explain it.
Exactly.
So how's life been since you got sober?
So, like I said, the last time I actually didn't get sober here. So I was in a treatment center here that suggested a place. No, I had a friend that went to a place in Georgia through through a treatment center here. And I ended up applying for that, and they flew me down there for treatment. Finally, things started clicking. I met a guy there who's there with me, and we started talking about, basically he inspired me to this time make it work. And he taught me a lot, a younger guy. And he taught me a lot as far as, about the spirit, about feeding my spirit, to make sure my spirit is well, to start to feed my brain with the knowledge of, this disease, and just knowledge in life to get better. And finally, it all just clicked. And, we also talked about becoming counselors. So after treatment, I ended up going to a halfway house in Abilene, Texas. And down there is where I started my journey on becoming a counselor. I started working at a treatment center down there as a tech. And it was the most fulfilling job actually that I've ever had. And it kicked off my life of being a productive member of society right there, because I was able to start helping people and, tell them my story and give them my wisdom, share my wisdom with them and my knowledge. And yeah, that's where I got started and started getting better down in, starting in Georgia and then on to Abilene, Texas.
So how's life treating you? What are you doing now with your life? Do you work?
Yes, so after that, I came back home after about a year and a half being gone. Again, started working at a treatment center, then started gearing towards my certification as an alcohol and drug counselor. Finally, again, I start becoming productive, learning that, life is all about what I put into it and what I give back to life, knowing that that's what I'm going to get back. Focusing on helping others first before, not before me, but just being able to, help others in whatever aspect of life that I can.
So are you still working at a treatment center?
Yes, I'm actually now a counselor at a treatment center here in West Suburban Chicago.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I, basically come from being overdosed and have dead on the bathroom floor to standing in the middle of a classroom, trying to show people and tell people that it's better on this side than being out and about in the ravages of addiction.
Yeah. How long
Yeah.
you been doing that now?
I've been in the business, so I got in. I was 11 months clean, so 8 years almost, I believe, from being a tech, a counselor, a case manager, and a counselor again. Now I'm a certified counselor though.
How long you been doing that? The certified counselor part. When did you get certified?
I got certified a year and a half ago, finally.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, wasn't easy. The test is not easy, but my life is much better now, and I'm higher than any drug has ever made me today.
That's good.
Yeah.
So one of the last questions that I usually have for everybody. Well, first off, let me ask you this. Two last questions. Do you have anything you want to throw in?
Not really.
Anything I missed?
No, not at all. I just, like I said, I'm just focused on what I can contribute to the world in the second half of my life now. It's, I'm not making it all about me. My life is not all about me anymore, because I did that and it wasn't as fulfilling or rewarding. So right now, the second half of my life is what is going to be my legacy and what I'm going to leave the world, and who can I touch along the way to, the end of my life. That's where I'm at right now.
That's great. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
So now my last question is, do you have any advice for people watching and listening?
Yes. Well, advice, just got to put in the work. It's not easy. It's an investment. You're going to get back what you invest into the world. You're going to get the same thing back. If you're going to put in the work, the reward is going to come back. And when it comes to drinking and drugging, the consequences will always outweigh the reward in life. You know, and sometimes you just got to step outside of ourselves to, you know, assure that we are just helping others. You know, that's what my life is based on. Most of my life, you know, I've done my life my way. I still plan on doing my life my way and not the way that society expects me to live my life as far as personally, you know. Because there are actually people out there that feels like, you know, that will feel like you're trying to do too much or you think you're better and that kind of stuff. But no, I'm just trying to be better than I once was. That's all. It's okay to try to be better.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Obviously, to try and be better is always a good thing.
Absolutely.
That's how you make progress.
Exactly. And, you know, maybe others don't think so, but I love the man that I'm becoming. You know, I still have a lot of work to do. You know, it's not perfect on this side, you know, but the setbacks hit differently when you're more spiritually sound, which is basically what recovery is all about, becoming spiritually balanced and sound emotionally and mentally.
How did you do that? How did you become balanced?
Mostly it comes from being selflessness, giving back, just not allowing like, things to get me too far down, you know. I make meetings still, I'm still connected, you know, I stay connected to recovery community, to the recovery community, you know. Yeah, and basically helping others, you know, helping others, not just in recovery, but overall, you know, see somebody struggling somewhere, lend a hand or an ear or a shoulder. You know, that's who I'm trying to be. That's who I strive to be, you know, a selfless individual, you know, that's trying to just live life the right way, and hopefully others can see that and possibly get something out of that.
Yeah, especially in your profession, being around addicts all day, you can kind of be a source of inspiration for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just, you know, showing them that somebody genuinely cares, because it's not just a job for me, because I can definitely go somewhere else or do something else and make more money, but I won't make the difference that I make. And I hope that I make in other people's lives, you know. So, yeah, you know, what is it? Reach one, teach one, or teach one, reach one, however it goes. I'm not too good with the cliches.
I never heard that one before.
Yeah, reach one, teach one, I think it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And hopefully that person will pass it on, and that person will pass it on, and so on and so on and so on. You know, I'm not out to try to save the world, just one person at a time. And hopefully that person, like I said, can pass it on to the next. And
yeah, like the ripple effect.
Huh?
I said like the ripple effect.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, and it goes both ways. You know, there's some people that's still out there that's sending people the other way. So we will have to watch that.
Yes. Yes, we do.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I think that's all we got for now. I know I said last question a few minutes ago. We kind of got to a little bit more. But yeah, that's all we got for today. So for everybody watching and listening, if you like what you saw and heard, go below and give us a like. Also subscribe. You will see when we upload new videos. You can check us out on Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're all over the place as far as social media goes. Also check out our website, www.addicts-anonymous.com. There you can click on the resources tab and you'll see a bunch of stuff available, and also the approved literature. You'll see that we have a ton of free literature available as well. So that's all I got for today. Until next time.
Thank you.